Alright guys, MTech Guy here. So seeing as it's such a nice morning today and we're coming into springtime, the car's all covered in pollen, I thought this would be a fantastic opportunity to talk about storing your M5 over winter. Now of course down here in the South Pacific in New Zealand we're coming into springtime. It's late October right now, but of course you guys in the Northern Hemisphere coming into the winter time and you're thinking about storing your car over the winter, storing your M5 through the winter time, and it is a question I have been getting asked regular just recently. So today I thought I'd put a video together on the steps you can take to look after your M5 while it's in winter storage. Alright, so first up, of course the car's going to be tucked away for a number of weeks. It's unlikely that the car will be started throughout that time, so you want to be looking after your battery. You don't want to be coming back to the car after winter and finding out it's completely flat. You won't be able to start the car. So even if you haven't got much draw on the battery, the cold can get to them and can kill them quite easily. So you want to be looking at getting a proper battery maintainer. Now there's lots of options out there, chargers, battery maintainers, but you want to be looking out for one that will look after a modern style battery. It's more than likely that in these cars you've either got a calcium or an AGM glass mat battery. Now most old school chargers and maintainers won't bring a calcium battery back from the dead if it's gone completely flat. It's almost impossible to get a decent charge in it, so you want a proper battery maintainer for a modern battery. Now I use a CTEK MXS 5.0. They're spot on for these cars, and if you go to BMW and buy a BMW maintainer, that's exactly what it is. That's the OEM manufacturer. It's just been a BMW box with a BMW logo on it. And if you keep an eye out, you can pick them up relatively cheap nowadays, so it's worth picking one up if you can do. And then you want to be hooking it up to the jumper terminals under the bonnet, not the battery itself in the boot. And you can just leave that doing its thing over winter, and what that'll do is keep the charge and it'll just maintain the condition of the battery also. Alright, so next up, engine coolant. Now how long ago has it been since yours was last changed? You want to be making sure that it has the correct ratio of antifreeze in it and not too little where there's a chance of it freezing. If it's been topped off with just straight water previously, then it's likely the antifreeze will be too weak. You want to be using the genuine BMW coolant and mixing it 50-50 with distilled water. If you have any doubt about the quality of the coolant, then replace it before storing your car for the winter. And similar thing with your windscreen washer fluid. Now make sure the reservoir is filled with a screen wash fluid that has an antifreeze in it, and run it through the spray nozzles so that the hoses are full of it. When I first moved to New Zealand, it came as a bit of a surprise to me that it's almost impossible to buy screen wash with antifreeze in it here. But that's what you want to be looking out for. Run the pump, get it through the spray nozzles, and then all them hoses will be filled with it, and it's unlikely that they're going to freeze and swell up. Now next up, you want to be thinking about your tyres. Now they're not exactly cheap for these cars, and you want to be putting a decent set of rubber on one of these cars with it having 507 horsepower, and you want to be looking after that rubber. So with these rims being relatively large, what can happen over time if you leave it sitting in one place is that tyres can start to flat spot, start to deform. So it's worth putting a bit of extra pressure in there before you store it over the winter time. I usually look at putting around about 3 bar. That's just a bit extra over and above your regular pressure, and what that'll do is that'll just save it from flat spotting too easy, and also it gives a bit of room for movement. With the cold they do deflate slightly over a long period of time, so that's worth doing. Now as far as your bonnet, your boot and your door openings, it is worth going around all the seals with a product like gummy fledge or even just a silicone spray. You don't need to go mad caking it on there, just a thin layer to keep the rubber supple and save it from going hard over the winter, and it'll keep the doors from freezing shut also if you do need to jump in the car at some point. Right then, rodents. This is a big one. Mice and rats love to find somewhere to nest nice and warm, like an engine bay or a windscreen cowl area, even in a garage. Now this is particularly bad news because they urinate and crap all over the place, and not only does it smell terrible, but it can be full of disease. They also love to gnaw on wiring harnesses. Now with the rate the likes of these SMG harnesses can deteriorate on these cars, causing all sorts of issues, you certainly don't want anything else accelerating things. So you want to avoid this happening. The prevention is far better than dealing with the mess later on. So the best preventative measure you can take is getting a small spray bottle and mixing some peppermint oil in some warm water with a little bit of dish soap. The dish soap will help the peppermint oil with mixing with the water. then spray it all around under the bonnet and across the cowl area. It's also worth giving it a few squirts under the car around the plastic underbody panels. The rodents hate peppermint smell, so this should help ward them off your M5. And then what you can do when you bring it out of storage is just get under the hood here with a spray detailer and just give it a good spray and wipe down afterwards. Okay, now another thing you want to be thinking about is you want to make sure to leave the car in neutral and with the handbrake off, otherwise the handbrake shoes can seize inside the drum. Make sure to chock the wheels, especially if you live in an earthquake prone part of the world. Ask me how I learnt this the hard way. Okay, so next up you can be thinking about your fuel system. Now some folk do like to use a fuel stabiliser when storing the car. It's not something I've ever bothered with in the past. I just make sure that there's some decent premium fuel, fresh stuff in the tank before tucking it away for the winter time. And these do have a sealed fuel system, so it's not something I've ever really been bothered about, but hey, if it makes you feel better, then chuck some in the tank before putting it away for the winter. And another job worth doing just before you put the car away is giving it a good wash and a good coat of wax, just to help look after the paint if nothing else. Now then, car covers. I've used car covers for many years on many different types of cars, and they can be a great solution if you don't have a garage to store your vehicle in, if done correctly. Now the main things to keep in mind: make sure it's a decent cover to start off with. The genuine BMW ones are great. They're made by Covercraft if I remember correctly, and they fit really well and are specific to the model of BMW you're buying it for. Never cover a dirty car, even if it was freshly detailed and you've only driven it around the block. If it's not just been washed and dried, then don't cover the car until it has been cleaned. Make sure the cover is fitted well and tied down securely. Now, it is worth taking the cover off if you do get the odd day where the opportunity arises. If the cover is left on all winter, it can cause stains in the paint from where the water has been sitting. So, removing the cover for a day and giving the car a clean will give it the chance to air off, and it'll protect the paint in the long term. And then when it comes to take the car out of storage, finally, then it's worth giving the car an oil change to make sure the oil is fresh and free of any moisture, and you'll be good to go. Alright, so to be honest, the best tip I can give you if you are storing your car over the winter time is to give the car a good run once every few weeks. If you do get a dry day and the opportunity does come up, it'll do the car the world of good. Give it a clean on your return home and put it away for a few more weeks until the opportunity comes up again to take it out for another spin. Of course, do avoid running it on roads that have been salted though. Alright guys, so there we have it. That's some of the main points to think about when you are storing your car over the winter time to look after your M5 as best as you can. Now, this isn't a fully comprehensive list. I'm sure there's a few tips and tricks out there that some of you guys might know. Please share them in the comments below. It helps out the whole community. Now, if you found the video interesting or useful, don't forget to give it a like, and make sure you go and check out the rest of my YouTube channel for more M5 content. Consider subscribing if that's your cup of tea. I'm MTech Guy. Thanks a lot for watching.